Well, hello. If you landed here, you've landed on Let's Talk News. And I'm your host, Leticia Remauro. And I thank you for getting here and joining me in this erratic time and schedule. But we found each other, and that's fantastic. And make sure that you type your name in the comments if you're new to the show, and type your comments in the comments and let me know what's going on, because this show is really more about you than anything else. It's a show where we take a look at the news cycle and talk about how it's being portrayed. And maybe I could give you a tip or two from some sources that I have after 30 years of being a political consultant, about what's behind this story. So it's good to have everybody here. And we're talking about some interesting stuff is happening. Just before we get started, I wanted to discuss briefly that there was some rumors out there or stories out there, actually some congressional people who stated that the CIA had raided Tulsi Gabbard's, DNI Secretary Gabbard's office, and took away the Martin Luther King and JFK files, because she was getting ready to release them. Now, I want to say this correctly. So the Gabbard's office said that didn't happen, but I don't know that it didn't happen. It may not have happened as a raid, but I'm thinking that some of the files that were coming out will not be coming out, but they'll release files and we won't know what we don't know, because that's what happens, right? We don't know what we don't know. What's concerning about that is that the CIA is involved again, because if you recall, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, a CIA operative testified in Rand Paul's hearing about COVID-19 and the cover-up and collusion of Dr. Fauci with his buddies, who happened to have played a desktop game of what would have happened if this virus, this very spreadable virus, hit the world, and how would it be handled throughout the world. And that was just a couple of years before COVID actually occurred. We knew something was not right with Fauci. We knew that from early on that he was funding gain of function research in Wuhan. And we know that one of the scientists who were very involved wound up dead. Actually, it was more than one. And they claimed it was from the virus. But, something's up there. But here's the thing. The CIA came out and said, that guy is not a whistleblower and we don't know anything about it, and yada, yada, yada. Because what the whistleblower said was that the CIA was involved in the cover-up. The Biden administration CIA was involved in the cover-up. And I use that term loosely, the Biden administration CIA, because frankly, I don't believe the CIA belongs to any president. If you ask me, the CIA is the shadow government. And there are certain people that were involved in that, including George Bush, the father, senior, who was terrific friends with Obama, right? So when it comes to deep state, I'm going to say that it starts with the CIA. And I'm very disturbing what's going on. So I'm going to play this clip, and then I'm going to come back and say hello to everybody. Okay, this is our CIA operative.
I am a career CIA operations officer, and as you mentioned, I was on joint duty assignment at the Office of Director National Intelligence Directors Initiatives Group, or the DIG, between March 2025 and April 2026. I was responsible for leading the DIG's investigation into COVID origins, anomalous health incidents, and unidentified anomalous phenomena. I'm here today to discuss the COVID cover-up, the national security implications associated with the DIG's investigative findings, and CIA refusal to comply with lawful oversight, as well as how we remedy these problems. Intelligence community leaders and senior analysts downplayed the possibility that the COVID pandemic originated as a result of a lab incident. Motives are difficult to define given the scope of the DIG's review. Intentional or not, the IC's actions resulted in a cover-up, wasted resources, and a failure to properly inform policymakers. Public health policy would have been very different had the American public been made aware that a virus from a lab in China was going to serve as the foundation for an emergency use authorization mRNA products being mandated by the former administration. Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional. Dr. Fauci influenced the analytical process and findings by leveraging his position to ensure the IC consulted with a conflicted list of curated subject matter experts, public health officials, and scientists. This included some of the authors of the paper, The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, and other public health experts who have been in his orbit for the last 20-plus years. Since 2006, the BSEG consulted part-time on biodefense issues for the IC, while conducting government-funded research and holding academia positions, as well as maintaining roles in public health institutions and serving as members in the National Academy of Science. They received funding from NIAID and other agencies for vaccine research, USAID's PREDICT project, the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, and even worked with Chinese scientists on coronavirus and other pathogen studies pursuing vaccines. There was no oversight monitoring how this web of relationships influenced research, policy, and public health in any holistic way for over 20 years. In fact, several of the BSEG scientists helped Dr. Fauci rewrite definitions of gain of function in 2015 to lift a funding pause on dangerous research. Still others participated in planning Event 201 in 2019. This was a coronavirus pandemic tabletop exercise curiously similar to the events that played out during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was attended by Dr. Fauci and individuals with IC ties like former DNI Avril Haines.
Okay, so basically what we're learning here is that Fauci and his cronies, it was like the evil Dr. Cocktail from Demolition Man. They were trying to rule the world with this disease, and they did. For a short time, they did. And thankfully, there were rebels like many of you on this program, and we pushed and pushed and pushed to stop the cover-up. And thank God Donald Trump was elected again, because I don't think any other president would have allowed that information out. So good for them. Hi, Colleen. How's Mom? Mom is... So here's the strange thing. This is why I wasn't on last night. Mom is 3 breaks in her humerus, and 4 in her pelvis. But the doctor says no surgery and no cast. And in fact, that she could bear weight on her leg and she should be able to walk with discomfort, but walking and will make airflow and blood flow, and that will help her. So she was transferred to a rehab floor. And in order to assuage the pain, they were giving her enormous amounts of muscle relaxers. That was their choice. And this is because of fucking drug addicts everywhere, that pain medication is not being offered, but instead muscle relaxers for a bone break. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But at any rate, muscle relaxers and pain medication both can wreak havoc on the respiratory system when especially when somebody has COPD, which is what my mother has. So what happened was is she wasn't exchanging oxygen, she wasn't getting rid of the CO2 in her body and absorbing the oxygen. And I mean, that's, how a lot of old people wind up dying, right? From pneumonia and things like that. You build up carbon dioxide in your lungs and in your bloodstream, and you don't bring in oxygen. That's what happened. She was delirious a little bit, but when we talked about it, they were kept on chalking it up to the amount of pain medication she was on. And frankly, I should have been smart enough, because I do know a little bit about COPD, being her daughter. I should have realized, I should have asked early on what dosage, because I was told she was going to go on one pain med at a small, low dose. And I knew that she could handle that because she's had it before. But they switched her to tramadol at what I was told 50 milligrams, which is a lot. And it resulted in this because she kept saying she was in pain, which she is. So now she's on no pain meds, but she is, except for Tylenol, and she's trying now to get rid of that O2 without having to go on a form of ventilator. So that's how mom is. She's feeling better, thank goodness. The break is less painful than it was. We're now 9 days out. Actually a little bit more than that. So thank you for all your prayers. So we have Andrew Dorman with us. How are you? And Kevin Wall from the other side of the world, but the same side of the issues. We have the professor with us. How are you? How are you, Karen? Yes, she's doing better. How are you, Angela Rick, on my right hand? Hello, Tammy Morton. Good to see you. You just happy belated birthday. And Colleen's birthday is coming up next month. You look great in your post. I love seeing that you're doing so well, Tammy. Good to have you. Colleen's asking, wasn't CIA involved in Nord Stream pipeline, or was that the FBI? CIA also involved in fixing foreign elections. Well, there you go. So, the problem with spooks is that you never know when they're going to spook on you. This is why I don't care. I didn't care for Bush Sr. He was a spook. I don't care for Putin. He's a spook. I don't care for spies as leaders of countries because they're never honest. They're never honest. I think it was the CIA that was involved because it's international. Usually the Central Intelligence Agency is more international stuff, and the FBI is more home stuff. But who knows? They all work together, and they really burned my ass. So Andrew is wishing mom a quick recovery, and I appreciate that. So as I said, after the whistleblower, the CIA is denying that they had anything to do with the cover-up. And I find it hard to believe. And I want to know what you guys think. I mean, do you believe the whistleblower, or do you believe the CIA? I believe the whistleblower. And I think that there's a lot more to learn. And this isn't the first time that we've heard from whistleblower about COVID. I mean, back in 2023, we heard about it. We heard about it all through the Biden administration. And at the end of the day, the question was, what were they looking for? They were, were they looking for this vaccine? Were they looking for money? I mean, we know Fauci makes a ton of money, and we know that everything developed under Fauci's little cabal there, you could get a piece of. So the taxpayers foot the bill for the research, and all these scientists get kickbacks for their inventions. So it's amazing to me that 6 years later, we still don't know what's going on. But then again, look at all the years later, we don't know what happened to JFK and Martin Luther King and so many other, scenarios, Kennedy. We don't know. And will we ever know? I don't know. My concern is I don't know that, and I've said this many times on this program, we're kind of free, but are we free? What do we not know? Who's really in charge? Because we went through 4 years of a basically brain dead president, and the wheels kept turning, right? So who was making those decisions? Who was turning those wheels? Who made the decision to put Biden in there? And who helped do it? All legitimate questions, and questions that should be being asked by the news media. But the news media is just turning a blind eye to it. And it drives me apeshit. I mean, they were so entrenched in oh, you have to wear a mask. Oh, you have to get the vaccine. They were so invested in making sure that we, the people, got locked down and our rights were taken away, that now when these scandals are emerging and these cover-ups are emerging, they're not even really talking about it. I mean, Forbes had coverage of the whistleblower, a couple of other stations, but I want to see the news stories. I want to see the investigative reporting. Why did it come down to a whistleblower? Why wasn't somebody probing like this Nick kid is probing on fraud? And we're going to talk about that too, because, Vance yesterday held a press conference and he pinpointed Hawaii. And I would have loved if Santillan was able to be with us tonight, but he's not. He's working actually, and he's on a case. But we're going to play it anyway. Vance pointed to Hawaii and the corruption there, as well as New York and California. And we're going to see that in a second. Kevin says Bo, and Bo. I think that should have been no, and no, I'm guessing. A typo. All right, let's see. So this is, oh, wait, what happened? What did I do? I didn't upload a file. Oh, I'm so tired. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm out of my mind these days. Just give me a second here as we upload the file of the Vance press conference. I don't know. Did anybody watch it? It was really interesting. And the follow-up questions were very interesting. The fact that the American taxpayer is footing the bill for baked in corruption. I mean, it's almost expected. The leaders of these blue states, and not just blue states, because, and Vance said, I mean, it's happening in Ohio, it's happening in Maryland, it's happening just about everywhere. But it seems like California and New York and Illinois and Minnesota are refusing to cooperate with oh, I just saw that. I'm a mess. Oh my God, I just realized we're not on Rumble tonight. They're refusing to cooperate with the fraud unit in Medicaid to to stop the fraud and to find out where the corruption is coming from. They just absolutely refuse. So now I'm having a hard time loading it. I don't know why. I wonder if I can play it in a different way so that I don't just bore everybody to tears by going on and on and on. But it's like they get a kickback or something from this fraud. I don't understand. All right. Tammy says, so true, Leticia. Who's making the real decision? I thought it was Queen Elizabeth. Yeah. Well, it's pretty interesting who's been running our country. And I think that we would all be very sad if we knew the truth, because we're the freest country in the world. And I mean, I guess, somebody once said, what level of free? It's all subjective, which is true. Michael Cox, good to have you. The Congress got people rich on the vaccines. They all bought Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and Merck, but none of them AstraZeneca. How did they know the government was only going to buy the first three? Oh, that is a good point. But we know that, right? We know that this is this is the problem in Congress, trading stocks and things like that. And they'll never check themselves. And I just heard something that was really heartbreaking to me. The Convention of States, which I've been pushing really hard, just let our friend Silver Wolf, the New York head volunteer coordinator, they just let her go. They parted ways with her. And that disturbs me greatly, because how do you part ways with a volunteer who spent time, money, and energy for the last 10 years helping you out? And I'm just wondering what's going on now with Convention of States. Did somebody buy them off too? Just worries me terrifically. Oh, your explanation was canceled by YouTube. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. I'm just wondering what the heck. Oh, now I'm intrigued. You got to see if you could use alternative words, Kevin. Code. Use code. I will play the JD Vance press conference snippets, and you can use code to tell me what the hell's going on.
We've been hard at work over the last several months trying to make sure that we take care of the people's money and trying to make sure that the services that exist for the betterment of our fellow citizens, whether they're low-income kids who need access to food resources, whether they're low-income families who need access to medical benefits, that those programs are protected for the people who actually need them, that they don't exist to enrich fraudsters, but they exist for the American people. First, we're announcing that the federal government is deferring $1.3 billion in Medicaid reimbursements from the state of California. And the simple reason is because the state of California has not taken fraud very seriously, and because of that, we see a lot of the consequences that I just referenced. And you have people who've been prescribed medications that they don't even need. Sometimes they've had drugs put into their bodies that they don't need because fraudsters have actually encouraged false prescriptions and false administration of medications. The second thing I want to talk about, and it requires a little bit of background explanation, is that we are going to very aggressively encourage the states to take Medicare fraud more seriously. The Medicaid system that exists in the United States is really 50 separate systems. The federal government pays most of the Medicaid money, but then each of the individual states actually administers the Medicaid program. Now, the federal government generously gives these fraud control units many, many billions of dollars across the United States of America so that they can take Medicaid fraud seriously. But let me just give you an example to highlight how absurd some of these Medicaid fraud programs are, because they're not actually being used at all. The Hawaii Medicaid program has received billions and billions of dollars from the federal taxpayers. And of course, Hawaii taxpayers have paid in a lot of money into this program over the last years as well. Guess how many convictions or indictments has Hawaii had over the last few years in its Medicaid fraud program? The answer is zero. Not a single indictment, not a single conviction, because the administrators of the Hawaii program just don't take it seriously. They don't think that fraud is a big enough problem. They don't care about protecting resources. They don't care about protecting that Medicaid program. So what does that mean? That means that if you're committing fraud in Medicaid in Hawaii, at least up until now, hopefully now they're going to take it seriously, you have had effectively free reign from the government of Hawaii to commit as much fraud as you want. That is a complete disgrace. So what are we going to do to fix that? Today, we are sending across 50 Medicaid programs, we are sending letters that will require them to show that they are effectively and aggressively prosecuting Medicaid fraud in their states. And if they do not aggressively prosecute Medicaid fraud, we are going to turn off the money that goes to these anti-fraud units. And I want to say a couple things about this. You may think, obviously, this is a Republican administration. We're all proud Republicans up here. You may think that this is purely a red state or blue state issue. That's actually not true. We see Medicaid fraud issues in Ohio, the state that I used to represent in the United States Senate. We also see Medicaid issues, fraud issues in a state like Maryland, which is obviously a very blue state. But both Ohio and Maryland have worked with us to take this issue seriously. They've worked with the guys behind me. They've worked with our entire team to make sure that they take fraud seriously. Again, this does not have to be a red state or a blue state issue. This is just basic good government. However, states like California, states like Hawaii, states like New York have completely not taken the fraud issue seriously in the Medicaid program. And so for those states that refuse to get serious about fraud, we are going to turn off that anti-fraud money. And if we continue to find problems, we can turn off other resources within their state Medicaid programs as well.
So, makes sense to me, right? Does it make sense to you? If a state is not using the money that's given to them to investigate and prosecute people who are committing Medicaid and Medicare fraud, then if those states are using the money for other things or not using it effectively, federal government's just not going to give it the money anymore because they're not taking it seriously. Sounds like a good plan, good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. But yet, 70% of news media reported that Trump is cutting funds for Medicaid and Medicare. Not the fraud enforcement area of Medicaid and Medicare, just Medicaid and Medicare. That's what's being reported. Because the news are a bunch of shysters. They're a bunch of propaganda reporters, and their TDS is enormous. How could you listen to this press conference? And yes, it was long, and I tried to cut it up best I could, but they're going to cut the money to your fraud bureau. Only if they continue to block efforts to stop fraud will they start making deeper cuts in other ways. So how could a reporter in good conscience, and you can find this on YouTube, and you can see the Q&A, how could any reporter in good conscience write a story that would meet the headline of that Trump is cutting Medicaid and Medicare? I don't know. So let's go back a little bit. I'm not sure what this was an answer to, but the professor said that 10 fighter jets plus everything that goes with it is $1 billion. And I'm not sure if that was, I guess that was in response to the fraud, the $1 billion that they were cutting in Medicaid for those Medicaid fraud units. Colleen is shocked by the news that Silver Wolf was let go. Yeah, you should be shocked. I'm shocked as well, because what happened to Convention of States has got to be our question. What happened there? Is it money? Were they bought off? What's going on? And for those of you who don't know, the Convention of States is a way to get a convention of the people to impose term limits. The agenda for this Convention of States, it's in the Constitution that if the Congress isn't doing the proper job, the people can take over, if you will, but they have to have a specific agenda. So, and the way they do that is that there's the separate state legislatures have to vote on approving going to the convention, and then the people and their legislators would go to a federal convention where a specific agenda would be voted on. And the agenda that the Convention of States has been pushing is term limits, balanced budget, and I forgot the last one, I'm sorry. But so they've gotten a lot of money for it. And they've gotten a lot of states buy-in. I think it's 23 or 24. I think they needed 26, so they're really close. Yeah, they let her go. And if you ever, as a matter of fact, one of our first right stuffs where Silver Wolf was on it. So if you want to go back on YouTube and look at the beginning, you'll see her there. And she explains the whole thing. And it was a great interview, but they let her go. The professor says definitely budget now less than deficit. Colleen, when I was in long-term rehab, they put us on Medicaid and they had a medical and dental staff. They would schedule us for each throughout our stay. They put us on food stamps and took those too, plus the residential daily fee. Well, and that's what they do too. There's a lot of programs. They did that with my son, and I didn't realize it at the time, but they had, it was specialties. He wasn't on Medicaid before. He was on our private insurance, but because he was over 18, they said he had to go on Medicaid, and I guess that's so. I could have kept him on private insurance, I guess, until 26, but they needed the Medicaid in order for him to join the program, and I didn't understand what that was, but they gave him a paycheck. Well, they didn't give him a paycheck. They just wanted his benefits, so they charged Medicaid for his training for work. It was very interesting. Colleen, rotating billable services for 200 residents. Yeah. And we had no choice but to go to the appointments. Right. And Robert had no choice either. Cox says, look at what elected took campaign cash from the Medicare fraudsters. Yeah, it was a lot of Democrats I saw. Very interesting. Colleen says they haven't picked up a new state in a while. I think the only one since I see is that term limits, balanced budget, no federal overreach. That's it, 3. And it was 34. That's right. They need 34 or 38 states to call the convention, and they have 19 or 20. Colleen stays up on it better than I do. Hi, Tom McMurray. How you feeling? Hope you're good. Colleen says her nephew too. So these programs have been running rampant for a long time, and even a political savvy person like me did not realize why. They said to me they need the Medicaid. They needed him on Medicaid to be in the program, and the program would benefit him. And if we waited to 26, how could he benefit? He went in at 21. So it made sense to me to go along with it. And his pay was his Social Security disability check, but they kept the Medicaid benefits. They took his SI, also accept $85 per month from Robert. So there we go. Colleen knows she's an accountant and she understands this stuff. But we have been screwed over on this kind of fraud stuff. I'm not saying that Specialties was fraudulent at all. Robert got services and they were good services, but we went through Medicaid. So I don't know what was legitimate and what wasn't. So I guess we're going to find out. Tom McMurray is good, and I'm glad. All right, I am rambling because I'm tired, and I'm sorry, but I hope, I just want us to really take a look now at the things that are going on. And Kevin was, his BOBOBO was Barack Obama. I thought he was just saying no, and it was a typo, but it was Barack Obama. Kevin Wall, that is. And the thing that I'm concerned about now is, we talked about Santillan in Hawaii a little bit, but now with Xi Jinping, kind of throwing out some threats to America about Taiwan, if China took Taiwan, it would not only affect the world, but Australia in particular would be in kind of a very bad position. And they're super, super opposed to that happening. So I'm interested to see what happens on this trip and how things play out. In the meanwhile, gas is still up. And today Iran, I think, took another ship, which is problematic. So we're in for a little bit of a bumpy ride, I think. But at the end of the day, America did the right thing by stopping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. but I'm just interested to see now when Trump, I mean, the United States has always kind of been ambiguous on Taiwan, never drawing lines in the sand. But I think Trump is ready to do that. I can't see him handing over Taiwan, because then why bother what he's done with Iran and Venezuela? So, we might be in for a bumpy ride here. And the interesting thing is all the Democrat talking heads are criticizing Trump for being nice to Xi Jinping and respectful and honorable. Could you imagine? I mean, so would they have preferred that he didn't go and have a conversation? I mean, these are the things I don't get about the left. If he goes, he's damned. If he doesn't go, he's damned. They want the president to sit in the basement like Joe Biden and do nothing except for what Barack Obama tells him. I don't know. Okay, Colleen says that gas is $3.87 by me. $4.19 in places. Yeah, it's $4.19 here. Although today I think it went down to $4.09. It's crazy. It's crazy. But I think we can all suffer a little pain for a little while to try and get things straight. What he's doing is flushing out the cockroaches, and that's important. Okay, thank you for prayers. Thank you, everybody. Love you all. I may see you tomorrow. Let's just see what goes on, because honestly, I want to sleep for a week. Love you, and we'll talk either tomorrow or Sunday. Bye.